Assalamualaikum, halo Mitra QR, selamat malam semua, selamat jumpa lagi dalam QR Talk, sebuah forum diskusi praktis tentang organization excellence, leadership, self-development, dan collaboration berdasarkan trust and respect untuk tumbuh maju bersama. In tonight's session, again, we will have it in English. Why? I believe you are all aware that today's session is still the continuation of our QR Talk Global Webinar Series, with main theme is becoming future ready organization. So to be fair for Mitra QR who attending from other part of the world, I see some people register from Singapore, Kuala Lumpur, London, Finland, US, and others. Welcome to you all. And to make the discussion more meaningful for you all, we will have it in English. So I believe it is all right for all Mitra QR. Okay, so I am Nureli Susetio. I'm from Quality Resources Coaching as your host tonight. And this is the session number 4 in QR Talk Global Webinar Series, Becoming Future Ready Organization, with a very, very interesting theme, which is gig economy, reward, and talent management. As you all know, we have discussed some great topics on this webinar series about how to be future ready. We have discussed on how we embracing new way of work for business sustainability. Remember that when we talk about work from home, work from office, or work from everywhere. And we also discussed on how an organization prepare for the future. It was a best practice sharing from Astra, if you remember that. And last time we discussed about what are the competencies and skills needed in the future. So, and tonight, I think it's good time for us to talk about one of the, I would say, the clear and present phenomenon happening all around the world that have a huge impact on work and employment landscape, which is the gig economy. So what do we need to know about gig economy? What the impact to job market landscape and talent management? And what should organization and workers prepare to be ready for this future phenomenon? To get all the answer, here are with us tonight 3 experts on this area. We have Dr. Alex Denni from Ministry of State Apparatus, Utilization and Bureaucratic Reform. And we also have Mr. Herman Cahyadi from Gojek and Mr. Shahryn Azmi from MakeTimePay, Kuala Lumpur. Good evening, Alex, Herman, and Shahryn, for making time to share your valuable thought with us tonight. Thank you so much. It is hugely appreciated. Okay, our discussion will be moderated by the one and only Mr. Taranjit Singh. Taranjit is the CEO of Quantum State Advisory based in KL and also a quality resources consultant partner. He is a senior consultant with 25 years plus experience in helping big corporations in Asia Pacific and Central Asia, including human capital advisory and business transformation. The ICF certified master coach with more than 5,000 hours coaching, also a co-founder of tech startup Jobs Kuala Lumpur and global advocate for Other Dots Foundation, a humanitarian movement foundation. An MBA from UK and Master of Laws from Australia, and also an honors degree holder in computer science and law from UK. Is also a chair of Regional Board Malaysia of Chartered Management Institute UK since 2020. So let's welcome Mr. Taranjit Singh. Good evening, sir. Welcome to QR Talk.
Good evening. Good evening to you.
Thank you so much for making time for being with us tonight. I know you have another commitment, but you really make time for us. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
It's my pleasure. It's my absolute pleasure.
Okay.
So if I may start, this is a fantastic opportunity for us to talk about this overwhelming topic about the gig economy. So allow me the opportunity to welcome all of you. This is our 4th global webinar series that focuses on what it takes to become a future-ready organization. Today, our focus will be on the area of reward and talent management within the gig economy space. Convenience, flexibility, and independence are the three words that are most associated with the gig economy. Now, before we commence our discussion about the gig economy, let us first better understand what a gigger is in the first place. The way I see it, ladies and gentlemen, it is a term that includes all type and possibilities of the workforce, whether it be individuals working for a fixed duration over a project, to as narrow as temporary workers facilitated by an online platform or technology application. What is interesting to note, however, is that contractual workers have had an innate presence in the workforce for many decades now, whether it be in manufacturing, in agriculture, in construction, and other sectors. However, this past decade or so, their prominence has been felt even more so with the changing business models that companies are now applying to stay afloat. Businesses have been forced to change the way they operate, the way they manage processes, and the way they manage their people. And now it has become even more exciting, as Nurleli had just mentioned. Work from home, work remotely, hybrid working, work from anywhere. Where will all this take us, ladies and gentlemen? The gig economy is valued at USD 347 billion in 2021. And it's growing at a compounded annual growth rate of approximately 17%. It is forecasted to grow to USD 433 billion by the end of next year, 2023. What is equally fascinating is that the gig economy comprises of people who are more than just ride shares or food delivery folks. Instead, they are now application developers, they are accountants, they are graphic designers, financial advisory people, consultants like myself, coaches, and the like. What at its very basic, the focus has been about alternative sources of income, side hustles, the driving need for entrepreneurship, self-ownership of businesses, and of the move from the concept of job security to the concept of income security. However, on the other side of the continuum, we have two big critical questions like, who is going to look after the professional development of giggers, seeing that he or she are not permanent staff of any organization? The second question that we see is, how do we reward these giggers? Is it purely on the work that they do, or is it on success fee-based approach that they will be looking at vis-a-vis the successes of the projects that they're involved in? What's the deal? With all this in mind, it's timely that we have the topic of today, the gig economy and its impact on rewards and talent management. With all the major changes that are taking place to the workforce and businesses, there are several big themes that are playing out. Would there be a difference in approach between an Indonesian perspective to that of Southeast Asia or even APAC as a whole? There are a variety of questions before us, and to help us, ladies and gentlemen, better understand this exciting areas Nureli has mentioned earlier, we have three eminent speakers on our panel who will be sharing their thoughts and perspectives, more so about where they see the gig economy going to. Now we have first up Dr. Alex Denni, the Honorable Deputy Minister at the Ministry of State Apparatus, Utilization and Bureaucratic Reform in the Government of Indonesia. Pak Alex Denni has had a variety of roles within corporate as well as private sectors and public sectors rather, respectively. And some of those roles he has played include the Chief Learning Officer at Bank Mandiri, the Chief Human Capital Officer at Bank Negara Indonesia, the Deputy Minister for the Ministry of Human Capital, Technology and Information, Government of Indonesia as well. Today, Honorable Alex Denni will be sharing his thoughts on what he sees playing out within the Indonesian talent space, and specifically, ladies and gentlemen, within the ambit of the gig economy. Pak Alex Denni, welcome to our session.
Thank you, Shahryn. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Thank you for inviting me, and thank you also for make my job tonight a bit easier, because you explain a lot about the gig economy and the phenomenon. So I don't need to explain more about it. And very excited to talk about gig economy, but also very challenging for me, especially when you put the public services within the context. Because currently, Bapak Presiden assigned our government agency to create a future-ready organizations for the public services as well, and ask us to transform our public servant to become more professional and world-class attitude in place. So this is a big job for us, and not to mention the other homework that we have. More than 2 million honorary employees currently work part-time basis on the government agencies spread out all over Indonesia. And also talking about the gig workers, by putting aside the technology platform, probably the public service officers in Indonesia can be considered as an early adopter of the gig workers, because for so long time ago, you know, some of our employees sometimes utilize the spare time to become a part-time worker and another private company. So it is not new actually, except for the technology platform. So allow me to construct my presentation into two parts. Part one, I'm talking about the context of the public service officers in Indonesia in numbers. And then on the part two, we talk about the gig economy. How do we see the advantages, the disadvantages, and how we deal with it, and what support given by the government to accommodate, to support this kind of business models. Well, if we talk about Indonesia, we have a lot of potential actually. We realize that we have a lot of natural resources, you name it, oil, gases, coal, mineral, and so forth. That's why almost all analysts predict us to become the top 5 of economy size by the 2045, which is 100 years of our independence. So this is the opportunity that Indonesian have right now. And also we have considered having a demographic bonus by having millennials in the workplace more than before. And if we talk about the public service, we cover from Aceh to Papua, 17,000 islands. It's not an easy task for public service moving to the very remote areas with a very limited infrastructures and support systems. And we now have more than 4 million public servants. But if we see the figure, we need to pay attention on this part of employees, because more than 1.5 million these employees doing a clerk jobs, which is, if we talk about the technology disruptions, is very, very vulnerable to become to be replaced by technology, right? So if we see the developed countries, the pyramid is already upside down. But in Indonesia, our public service officers still having a bottom of the pyramids. The pyramids are more than 1.5 million employees there. And of course, we have teachers at the major part of the technical part, technical jobs, and also, of course, the medical services. And this figure actually, on top of these figures, we have another 2.2 million honorary employees who work on the government agencies. So this is the homework that we face now to transform the public service officers to become more professional and world-class professionals, because so many people doing so many things on sometimes overlap here and there to make the bureaucracies work slowly, and then the climate of investment also not quite conducive to attract more investors. So this is our problems. In terms of employment agreement, we have two types of employee on the public sectors. We have a permanent type of employee, we call it PNS, Pegawai Negeri Sipil. Then we have PPPK. PPK is actually a contract-based employee. But on the regulations, we limit these contract-based employees at least 1 year. So this is a bit unflexible to accommodate the honorary employees and to give more flexibilities on the government agencies, recruit on the based on their needs. So if you talk about the gig economies, you mentioned the numbers before. I'm not going to repeat it again. But if we see the demography of the gig workers, actually almost all type of ages, right? If you talk about 55 and above, we talk about 18 to 24. So these gig economy models actually open opportunity to all of us. Like, just like Karanji said, probably I'm currently playing a role also as a gig workers, because on a weekend I create content on the platform. Then sometimes I give advice to the corporate during my day off. So anyone has an opportunity to become a gig workers currently. And in Indonesia, we call it an informal workers. The numbers is more than a half of total employment in Indonesia. So we have more than 78 million informal workers in Indonesia. So this is the big amount of employment type. And for the private sectors, we also have the type of fixed permanent employees and the contract-based employees. Lucky us, through the new regulations, the contract-based employees currently also considered a freelance, a daily worker. So now we have regulations that covers gig workers models on the private sectors, but not yet on the public. On the public, we limit the contract-based employees at least 1 year and can be extended into maximum 5 years. So me, myself, actually a contract employees under government. I'm not initially working for the government agencies. I'm from the private sectors, then contracted by the government to help finishing few tasks. After that, probably I'm going to end up my contract. So if you talk about the second part, what is the pros and the cons of the gig economic models? Yes, of course, for the company point of view, no fixed salary. So you pay as you go. Yeah, flexible. If you need an employee on some places for some times, you just recruit it. You don't need to conduct a training. You don't need to pay a benefit and so forth. So from the company point of view, this is a very flexible, very cheap, very cost effective. But the cons, of course, since the employees doesn't have any formal engagement with you, they can go anywhere else at any time also. And sometimes we dealing with the ethical issues because they don't cover on the insurance, on the benefit and so forth. Sometimes we need to really make sure that unethical conduct not happen in our workplace. And on the other side, if you talk about from the employee point of view, it's very flexible. You can go here and there and no commitment. You just finish your task, then you go to other tasks. You can serve the highest bidder to your services, and you can work remotely because the technology platform make you easy to work from anywhere, anyhow, at any devices. But for me, if I work full-time as a gig worker, full-time as a part-time employee, it's gonna be a high stress, especially if you have a family dependent and child who still need education. And so forth. You don't have an assurance to get a fixed income when you're gonna get income and how much and so forth. So there's no safety net there. You have to pay your own taxes. Sometimes you have to pay your own license for the software, for the permit and so forth. And you have to think about your own development. If you do a gig working on the generic skills, you have a lot of competitors. So you got to be careful on that. But if you have a specific skills, which very niche, and you cannot be replaced by other skills, so you may have a quite strong position in the market. So it depends on which field of gig working area that you enter. If you entering the commonly generic skills like online taxi drivers, deliver and so forth, a lot of people can replace you at any time. So this is like a piranha type of working, right? So if you don't strong enough to show that you have specific skills, you just a generic commodity. Commodity will compete on the price war, right? So if you have a specific skills, you enter a niche market, then the price war will not happen there. So I strongly advise to the gig workers actually to spare your income for your own development. I call it learning wallet. You need to have your own budget to develop yourself. Otherwise, you're not gonna have quite advantages to fight with the competitions. Is very brutal on this market sometimes. So I think that every workers, not only actually the gig workers, but every employees, I think, should spend their money should spare their money to their own development. Lucky you if you deal with the type of permanent employee in the company. Some companies provide the budget for you to learn and develop. But for the gig workers, you're very independent, you're very flexible, but you're also responsible for yourself more than the permanent employees. Now we talk about the support that given by the government. Our government provide, we call it Kartu Prakerja. So every people who are willing to enter the working the business world, they got an opportunity to get a Kartu Prakerja. So government give a budget for them to learn new skills that going to bridge the educational knowledge that they have into the practical skills that needed by the company. So government provide this kind of subsidies to the people. And also government provides support for the healthcare, family, and education. We have a Kartu Keluarga Sejahtera for family, poor family. We have a Kartu Indonesia Pintar for paying a tuition of education and so forth. We have a Kartu Indonesia Sehat for the healthcare security. And also we have a support for social security like BPJS Ketenagakerjaan. And these now cover also freelancer and part-time worker. So government provide sort of support to the gig economy model actually, but still my advice to the gig workers that you need to really manage your income properly, because there's no guarantee that if you are now engaged by one company, next month or next year you will be engaged also by that company. The company can choose which resources that which talent that provide their needs and wants more, and at what cost they can bear on. So I think that's the figure of the public sectors, the gig economy, and what the support given by the government in Indonesia currently, and I'm looking forward to have a discussions with the
well done, very well done. Thank you, Pa Alex. Thank you. I mean, it's amazing. I thoroughly like the thoughts that you have provided. The numbers are staggering. Almost 6.4 million from a civil service perspective, 77 million informal workers as a whole, staggering numbers. And I particularly like your thoughts around the e-learning wallet. I think we are moving the responsibility from the company to the shoulders of the individual, which should be the way. We should not depend on others. We should be interested in our own. So thank you very much, Pa Alex, on this. Allow me to now welcome the next speaker. And the next speaker we have is Pa Herman Cahyadi, who is the Deputy Chief People Officer of Gojek, Indonesia. Herman has more than 15 years of experience in the people and talent space, whether it be at an operational level of payroll, rewards management, to name a few, or at a strategic level of M&A and the transformational related stuff. Herman started his career in PT Bank Lipo, Indonesia, where he moved across a variety of roles, ending as VP HR and HRBP for sales and distribution. He then went on to PT Bank Niaga, Bank International Indonesia, Bank UOB Indonesia, and the Asian Pulp and Paper, part of the Sinarmas Group, with a full focus on the human capital space. Pa Herman is a senior member of the leadership team of Gojek and lectures in strategic management and HR at the University of Tarumanagara, Jakarta, Indonesia. Today, Pa Herman will be sharing with us the journey that Gojek Indonesia has taken as they manage their talent and transformed as a group over the years. I would like to welcome Pa Herman to the table. Pa Herman, welcome.
Hi, Priyanjit. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you. Over to you, sir.
So, yeah, thank you, everyone. Thank you for having me in this session. So I just want to share about not just like Gojek, right? I just found about the gig economy from the talent perspective.
Nice.
Just now that Pa Alex has mentioned that there's a two group of the gig employee. One is actually what we call as the blue collar. It's just like something that someone is paid at the minimum region of salary. And the second one is actually the person who do the what call it as the part-time job, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm thinking about I just found out some information that as a global one, and probably I'm not taking this one as the part of the project, but something that we can discuss later on, right? So if you see where the people of finding the gig of employment, 70% of the freelancer find a job actually through the site and also online site. Some of the blue collar as well as the worker, as a field worker, sometimes it's just see the vacant position on the government company or also the public company. But most of it is actually they are saying that the 7% is actually taking a job from the online one. The reason why gig worker is actually love to do this is just because the 60% of the gig company is feel like when I do the part time or I'm doing this, it's just I find some flexibility rather than the traditional employee, right? It's only few that the traditional employee, about 27%, saying that yeah, I also find some flexibility. But my sense is actually when they said to find some flexibility, is also coming from the senior level, right? Instead from the young people. But I'm not so sure about the money, because this is we're talking about in US, right? But if you see, right, what I can see actually, not just in US, but actually across the Asia and also India, the gig economy actually expanded 3 times faster, right? So it's just like the growing of the gig economy these days, especially after the COVID situation, is also increasing quite rapidly, right? But then where is the sector that the people is coming in? But like Alex mentioned, that there's 40% is actually on the public sector, meaning that the government also helping to find the key company to find a job. But surprisingly, if you see the tech itself is only 5%, right? But something to be validated as well. It's just like if you see across of the company who has the gig worker is actually more on the surface company, right? But if you see on the heavy lifting and also from the IT and technology, is like below 10%. So meaning that my sense is actually if it's something like Gojek and also with the tech company, yes, we have like a gig company, it's like a part-time job, but it's just like probably we not put them as a contract. It's just like there's one that kind of the employee is actually become my permanent employee, but they also find some flexibility in the job itself, right? But then why people is choosing to have to work as a gig worker, but at the end of the day, what they're looking is actually the money itself. Sometimes they no, it's not sometimes that if you see on the percentage number, you have like 60% and 57% talking about the how to get the extra money or extra income, right? But if you see the bottom the two bottom of the option, right? They say that 46% is actually is very easily to find a schedule, our own schedule, right? That's the reason why they call as the flexibility of the job, and also they also find about the better life or work balance. That we can talk about it why they find a better life and that one. So if you see by age, right, this is also if I compare with the situation in Gojek itself, I can see that the most of it is actually between 18 to 34. Average of our company is right now is already moving from 27 into 30. So it's meaning that it also valid that the gig company is most likely between the younger people rather than the old one. Same like in tech company like Gojek as well. I'm not saying that by 11%, but it's actually the people who has below 54 is very small, right? It's not because of the what call it the generation. It's just like the people who already have at this position at the 55 is actually mostly is actually a professional to help us or to help Gojek to grow in the good manner, right? But by education, it's also valid, right? 41% is actually most likely people is actually already just get the high school or diploma. It's happening from the last 5 years in Gojek itself, right? But after we grow as a company, then it is shifting from the diploma to the bachelor degree or master degree. But if you see most of the startup, most likely is actually in the high school and also in diploma, right? Now, if you see right here, 70% of the freelancers saying that I want to create our own become our own boss. I want to create our own schedule. It's just like the thing is the people who work in startup have the entrepreneurship of thinking, right? Rather than it just like become rather than just become an employee, but they are thinking that here I'm working in Gojek. Or I'm working in startup, but also I want to create. I want to enhance my, or I want to shape my entrepreneurship skill in this company because most likely of the startup right now, especially in Indonesia, is always try to problem solve with the society issue, problem solve about the things that it can be improved in our country itself, right? But then we see that that's the thing that the people love to work in the startup at this day, right? Not to mention about schedule, not to mention about the job security and everything, and also the income itself. That's why people is love to join the Gojek. Let me sharing a little bit one more thing, right? before I work in Gojek, so I also work in banking as a company, very structured company, right? When I moved to Gojek, it's just like what people love to move to startup this day. This one is actually 3 years ago, right? While I asking a lot of the colleague, can you tell me why people right now our own talent, why they move to startup, right? But then because we cannot find some answer, then I moved to startup to get the feel why people love to move startup. Then I feel that working in the startup company in Indonesia is much different with the structured company. In the sense of we can have some. I'm not talking about the flexibility, but I'm talking about I can have my own thinking or my thought, and also I can have like the authority to improve myself indirectly during my job, right? There is no structural system in the company in startup at this stage. But then I'm like trial and error, which one is suitable with the startup, which the decision could be great or not, which decision is good or not good, right? That's the reason why I just realized that why people love to move to the startup. It's just like startup is giving some like self-training or just like the life training for them, so they can become a better decision maker or become a good thinker in the company itself. So there's quite a lot of the opportunity to work in the gig worker, right? So second thing is just like some part-time. I have a friend who has a part-time job in the startup. They are thinking that if I become a part-time between one job to another job, I also can gain some more money, right? In software saying that the one who do the part-time is also getting 58% higher than the permanent one. I also asked a few friends about it. Yeah, I can work between 2 or 3 companies in a week, right? Because I don't have any liability or any contract direct to the one company, but I can work between the company itself. Then I can gain some more. But that's the trend, right? But then they also realize that by the gig company, they also lose about the medical benefit. It's also happening in Indonesia, unless they have the BPJS to have to cover the medical one. So, but then if we see on the thinking about the industry itself, right? Do they satisfy with the gig economy? 67% saying that yeah, we are cool. We are okay with the situation of this day. But there is some part of the people who's not loving this one as well. It's just because of the most of it is actually coming from the structure company to start up. They are also thinking that this one is very risky for us, right? How can I work with the company who doesn't have the enough good foundation to run the company, the big company. But then if you see on the big picture of the startup right now, most of them is actually not profit maker this day, right? This is the loss, right? Then some of the people who feel like the insecure with the future or benefit, they just feel that I'm so afraid that if this company fail, then I will lose the job, right? Not to mention that this lately the quite a lot of startup is actually doing the layoff, right? So this is what happened, right? So yeah, I think this one is only about age, but if you see on this one of the something that I trigger quite a lot is actually India. India is about the quite a lot of the people in India actually working in the tech company, but then the growth in India is quite high now. But I don't know whether the survey is actually looking at the Asia, but I see the Philippines is also here, but I don't know what the Indonesia is thinking about the gig company right now, because I think in Indonesia itself is a little bit diluted in the sense of the which one is the contract, real contract as the white collar, and also contract at the blue collar. Yeah, so I think that's the big highlight, Kiran, about the telling about the gig company from the employee perspective that I can find from the survey. Hopefully that it can be some of the things that to be discussed as well.
Very good, very good. Thank you, Herman. What is fascinating for me is the thought around startups and how startups have actually gone away to attract high school and diploma holders first as they then evolve. And I found that quite fascinating, and we can talk a little bit about that. But thank you for that, Herman. What I would like to do is, as we're going along, this would be actually very interesting if people are now coming up with their thoughts and questions that we can then pose to the earlier two speakers. Now, the last speaker that we have is a very interesting individual. I have great delight in introducing a former work colleague, Shahryn Azmi, who is a co-founder of MakeTimePay, which is Malaysia's largest and fastest growing gig employment portal. So it's interesting to see how Denni talked about it at a bigger picture with Indonesia and 77 million potential employees there within the gig space. And then we looked at Herman, how he narrowed it down a little bit. And now we've got Shahryn Azmi, who will be talking specifically around the gig portal side. Now, Shahryn has lived and worked in 7 countries around the world, including 5.5 years in Indonesia as well. So he has on-the-ground experience there. He's worked in 9 different industries, ranging from IT to oil and gas, defense consulting, strategy, pharmaceutical research, consulting from an organizational aspect, consulting from a telecommunication aspect, as well as theme park design. Shahryn is a very mission-oriented individual, even landing a gig work employment with the Prime Minister of Malaysia from 2007 to 2009, specifically driving the improvement of the public service delivery. In 2014, which is when I got to know Shahryn personally, he was headhunted at that time into the Sovereign Wealth Fund of Malaysia, Khazanah Nasional, to support the closure of Malaysian Airlines. That event remains Malaysia's largest corporate layoff. His remit was to ensure that 20,000 people who had lost their jobs landed reasonably well. He continued to support various government-linked companies in their downsizing until 2020, when the then new government of Malaysia decided that Khazanah Nasional should focus on other more financially focused priorities. And it was at that time that Shahryn and his team were actually laid off. So you talk about short-term, you talk about gig-related. This is a man who has been through that particular run of the mill. He established MakeTimePay as a startup in 2021 because Shahryn believes his work in helping people is far from being complete. It is with great delight that I have Shahryn here at the table to bring his views and bring light to the experiences that he has had, together with some of the thoughts that he's putting into place with MakeTimePay. Shahryn Azmi, welcome to the table, Shahryn.
Andrew, you're very kind. Let me share with everybody the what I'm going to do here, which is have a look at, all right, here we go. Let's see. I'm assuming that you can all see.
Yes, we can.
Okay, that's great.
There we go.
Okay, thank you very much. So let me shoot through some of this because obviously I'm following I'm following Pak Alex and also Pak Herman. But I'll just do some of this because it's important to establish where I'm coming from with this. And the first thing is, what's a gig? And I define this because it's very important on my side, because when you look at media, when you look at people talking, and I suspect some of you on this webinar as well, as you listen, your first thought will be the most common one, which is food delivery and rideshare. And these are the common ones. Whenever you see a newspaper, well, you don't have newspapers anymore, but when you look at media and so on, you'll see the image is always food delivery, it's always rideshare. But the reality is, as everybody has said, these may be the case, but all of these people are gig workers. And so really we're looking at a definition where it's any work for pay on a non-permanent basis is a gig. But Alex just now was saying that as a government officer, technically as a minister, he's on a gig because at a certain point, he does not have indefinite permanent employment. That makes him a gig worker. And this is one of those things. I was a senior, I was a chief executive officer of a government company, and I was on a contract. So technically that was a gig as well. So many of you, if you are on a situation, on a contract, right now, you are technically already, in many ways, non-permanent and therefore on a gig. So we look at this, and this is based on our own organization, MakeTimePay's tracking data, and we see that these are the main reasons that people are actually right now chasing gig work. And what is very interesting is that the main reason is they need to improve their finances, and we're looking at this, and this really the pressure of there's personal circumstances. But the new one that's actually coming up is that they have an interest in a professional change, and gig work is allowing them to bridge what they're doing and moving on to a new opportunity. What is most interesting about the issue of finances is that they are talking about, these are not unemployed people, these are fully employed people. They have a job, they get a salary already, but they're not earning enough. So this is about supplemental income. This is about putting extra money in their pocket, not about being unemployed and trying to go from gig to gig to gig. These people have a base, but they're still not happy. So evenings, weekends, they're actually doing extra in order to be able to put money in their pocket. So this is the big push at the moment, certainly out of the people that are signing up with us. The pressures of employment though, you need to look at this on a worldwide basis, because I think the discussion so far is we talk about it as a voluntary thing. But when you look at this on a round the world basis, the International Labour Organization and McKinsey are talking about 800 million people losing their jobs worldwide by 2030. And this rate of automation and digitization is going to continue at a very, very high rate, because every single time there is a technology breakthrough, it doesn't affect one person. It literally affects hundreds of thousands of people. And that's how you get these large numbers that you're talking about. If you look at this right now, in all of these cases here, these are all real replacement of individuals. You see the little delivery robots. You see the pizza delivery motorcycle, no rider. The motorcycle rides by itself and will just come to your door. You have to leave your house or your apartment to come down and take the pizza. The pizza man doesn't come to you anymore. But that bike doesn't have a rider, or it's going to be a drone delivery. Singapore has already decided that their bus drivers and the taxi drivers are gone. So Singapore says all their buses and their taxis, Autonomy in Singapore is a driverless taxi. These vehicles have no drivers. So those jobs are gone. So, and here, this little video on the side is actually a restaurant near my house. Taranjit will know it, but basically they had trouble during COVID, so they started getting automated robot waiters delivering. So this is not something that is happening in a faraway country. These are things that are happening now, and we're seeing this. Now, one of the problems that we see when people talk about gig and they look at this is the idea that this won't affect me because I'm educated, I'm smart, I've got a master's, I've got a white collar job, I'm very senior, all this kind of stuff. Well, here's a video I would like to show you, and this is important to be able to see. This is a video, if you've seen it, I don't apologize. This is the Da Vinci surgical machine. The Da Vinci surgical machine here, you will see, is so precise and so gentle that what it is doing is it is actually cutting and peeling the skin of a grape. So you'll see this being done. Now, if you think that it can actually cut and peel the skin off a grape is gentle, the next part is it puts the skin back onto the grape, and then the machine will actually sew the skin back onto the grape. Now, why is this important? Because this is actually replacing doctors in the surgical theater. It is replacing nurses in the surgical theater, which means that your surgery team no longer needs to be to have a rest break. Your surgical team doesn't need to go to the bathroom. It doesn't need to eat. It can actually keep operating for 8, 9, 10 hours with very, very high levels of precision. Your surgical team of 14, 15 people now comprise 2 people. And what happened to the 12 people? They are very high educated people. So this is not an issue of choice. Hospitals are turning to them and saying, we don't need them. Now, one of the things that happened, of course, people say, oh yes, this is very far away. This is in the United States. This is in Europe. I said, no, this is Malaysia. We have 3 hospitals that are actually with these machines and already trying to make money doing this. So that's absolutely fine. And we look at this and we see other issues with coming out on employment, pressuring employment. 190 million, 200 million people losing their jobs due to the COVID-19 pandemic. And that is not going to come back. The pre-COVID type of work is not going to come back. It's gone and it's gone and it's gone. So now we have the situation of a new world. The other one is, Herman just now was talking about the US, but that number is actually going to be 50%. That is actually the forecast. 50% of the US workforce, 1 out of 2 people in the US will be employed on a gig basis by 2025. What does that mean? That means they will all be on short contract. 2025, that's in 2 years' time, half of the US workforce. Now, we believe, as MakeTimePay, we believe that that tsunami, we call it, will roll across the Pacific and is going to hit Asia in a very large way. If it hasn't already, you will start to see it more and more, where people are 2 things. One, voluntarily themselves choosing to work on a gig basis, and the other one being told, I'm sorry, but your permanent job is gone. We are moving you to contract. So this is something where people don't have a choice, and this is going to be accelerated with time. So when you look at this right now, one of the things that we look at, the complaint really from the company perspective, the employers, they say, well, you know, we're looking for talent. We can't find them. It's so hard. The reality is actually there's a lot of opportunity out there. And we're saying not a lot of talent. Not true. There's actually a lot of talent out there. Where the challenge is they cannot find each other. And so what we want to be able to do is bridge the two. We want to bridge all the people looking for opportunity and all the opportunity looking for the workers, so that we can have a much faster joining of the 2 sides. And this is how, I have to plug this, this is how our business was created. We want to democratize work opportunity and say, now everybody can work. So we offer gig work across all industries, all skill sets, and all ranks. So you don't have to think about, oh, what do I, you know, how do I make money? How can I look for a gig? Because all you need to do is basically think about MakeTimePay, and already we have this leading opportunity, and it's absolutely massive, and it's something that really only technology allows us to do. When you look at this, the worker types look like this, right? Right now out there in the market, you have employees. They are permanent staff. They have no specific end date for employment, and lucky them, they are employees. That's wonderful. Then you have contract staff. And this is more general than Alex is talking about, but you'll see this in a moment. These are essentially, we'll call them consultants. They have a very limited term with a single company, and they don't work for anybody else. They only work for one company, but they are on a contract, and therefore they are very limited. Here you have the on-demand staff, and they are independent contractors. These are possibly the ones that you engage them as you need them. When you need them, you get them, and then they come in quickly. But they will likely be working for many companies at the same time. We call it fractional. And these two groups, the contract staff and the on-demand staff, those are your gig workers. And what we are seeing here is that the number of permanent staff in the market is going to drop. It is dropping, and it's going to head that way. It's not going to recover. The number of consultants, those who are limited term engagement contract staff, is growing, but it's not growing as fast as the independent contractors, both for choice and also because of circumstances. When you look at this across life stage, right, we'll say that the worker life stage looks like this. They have early career, mid-career, they become established, and then they then become senior. So when we look at something like this, the thing that you actually be able to see is through this time, what is actually very interesting is their propensity to gig, the chances, their movement towards gig actually takes a big climb up early in their career because they're young, you know, they don't have the commitments, but suddenly they move into mid-career and they start getting married, they start buying a house, they start buying a car, all these kinds of things. And that interest to gig on a full-time basis drops off. But then it starts to climb again because they start to get a little bit more confident, they get a little bit bolder, things are happening, and then the interest and propensity to gig starts to climb as well. What is interesting from a corporate perspective is when you're very early on, their interest to give you a big an offer to work for a very long time. It's actually not very high because they just don't know you're very young, whether they want to do this. But some people, they want to grab and hold you. So there's two actual groups here. Then what happens is it changes, and you start to see that as the individuals start to get older, companies will say, well, actually, we really prefer to put you onto a contract and not have you work forever. So that is actually something that's happening as well. The other one is also the need for skilling. So we were talking just now about talent management and development and so on. And you'll actually see that the need for skilling starts to actually drop off over time because people actually get quite good and they start to rely on not raw skills, but actually experience. You start to see this. Where things start to get really interesting is this critical point here, where they start to actually have a greater interest in gigging. Then companies are starting to issue more contracts. The need for skilling actually drops off. And right at that point, they're actually mid-career professionals. They're actually out of the early stage. They're not as late as the seniors. And at that point, you start to look around and go, okay, so what is actually happening here? Because all of that comes together and actually encourages people to look at shorter contracts, looking at gigging. So I will wrap you with a couple of comments that we see happening. And the future of work looks like this. We see that eventually all employees are going to be on a contract, which means they're the end of permanent work. Even I suspect, Alex may disagree, I think government work, there will not be forever until pension. It's just not going to happen. People are just going to be put onto contracts, and that will become the norm. Companies are going to have much more technology. With the result, there's going to be 70% less staff. There's not a need to have the size of headcount that we have today, where everybody does something, not really sure what they do, but you just have a very big company, and those companies are going to keep shrinking in favor of having much more technology. What we know today is that 70% of the jobs that we know are going to cease to exist, or they're going to be taken by technology. And that includes, for instance, in Hong Kong, the #1 job profession that is actually declining is actually accountant. The accountants are just disappearing because they're all being replaced by software, and that is something where they're saying, okay, don't need to be an accountant, and they're leaving that. I will make a small comment here. In Malaysia, for some reason, more people are becoming accountants or studying to be accountants. Not such a good idea. When we look at this also, 80% of work is actually tasks. So when you look at work, your day or anybody's day is actually tasks. That means you need to do a to-do list, and you will move through a situation where at least 90% of a corporate's corporation's task, a company's task, is actually going to be gigged and going to be gigged off-site, which also relates to the fact that you don't need as many people. You will actually have a company which is much more productive because people are not doing other things. They actually have their work broken into tasks, and the tasks are taken care of. Then what happens here is market rates or fees become more influential because gigs are easier to access. This is about reward. So in a situation where you can have actually a very proficient person, somebody who is very skilled, it's going to be based on cost and benefit. And the easier gigs are to access, the more tasks that are actually farmed out to individuals to do, it's going to be based on fees. So you're going to be seeing this where it's really going to be very, very fast, not salaries, but actually fees. I want you to do something. This is what I will pay for it. Finish, move on. And then eventually, which, as we mentioned just now, Taranjit mentioned, and also Alex mentioned, this big skills gap we're going to see, where skilling, the responsibility for skilling is completely personal. It is something that an individual needs to do for them to be able to move forward, and it's out of the realm of the company because the company has so fewer staff and everything is going to be gigged, and this is going to be a situation where it is the responsibility of the individual. So I think the net of this is essentially, it's not about as much of a voluntary thing. You know, I have 3 children. The chances are they will be all on contract. They are not going to be in a situation where they will find a permanent job. And so therefore, that makes them giggers. So the number one thing that they need to learn is not necessarily a skill as much as the ability to drive and sustain and learn and want to basically keep growing with time. That is the thing where it's very challenging for people moving forward in this little transition period, but later down the road, it's going to be perfectly normal. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Shahryn. So a couple of interesting takeaways, especially if you talk about the number of people that are entering into the workforce. We at QSA have done research in this space. And if majority of the people in the US, over 50%, are going to be giggers, you can just imagine the flow through to the other parts of the world, including us in Southeast Asia. I have a couple of things here, Shahryn, and thank you very much for a fantastic discourse there. And this is to all of you. A thought here that comes across is, insofar as the individual now has to be more responsible for his development or her development, there's also the need for the company to manage succession planning. There's a need for the company to manage the career pathing. And I think there will be a tipping point, and I would love to hear Pa Alex in his thoughts here. How do we manage this tipping point between workers going off to talk about temporary work as a gig, but the needs of the company to actually talk about succession planning for sustainability over a 5, 10, 15, 20-year time frame? And I'm thinking about the big companies like the Sinar Masas and what have you, where succession planning is pretty critical to a long-term sustainability. Pa Alex, your thoughts on this, sir?
Thank you, Taranjit. Moving forward, I think the importance of employee value propositions is getting important, more important than before. Every company should define what actually they can promise and deliver to the employee that they attract to work for. Otherwise, they're going to lose the talent. So it is important for a company to balance what expected from the talent and what promised to the talent to deliver. So I think moving forward, the employer branding, employee value propositions will be more important than before, Taranjit. That's
very nice. Very nice. Very nice. So let me take the same question to Pa Herman, where as a gig-based entity like Gojek, and you have a substantive number of people on your staff in this side, how are you managing the throughput of talent as it goes through the talent pipeline, Pak Herman?
So this is the interesting part, right? But when we're talking about how to move this kind of talent in the pieces in the startup company in Indonesia, especially, the problem is actually we are shortage of the talent itself. That's something that probably we're not thinking about the succession plan or things, right? But the only thing that we are struggling right now, how to get the right talent for our own company, startup Indonesia. Usually that all the engineering staff or most of the engineering staff is actually coming from the outside of Indonesia because they have the capability. They also have the the effectiveness of the work, right? Rather than the Indonesian people who work in engineering. So that's the reason why probably most of the startup company in Indonesia have not thought about the what next for the certain of the job in the startup, especially on the engineering side. We are thinking how to fulfill that kind of talent in the market of Indonesia, how to build the market of how to build the talent in Indonesia itself. That's what we're struggling right now, Taranjit, right?
Interesting. So what is fascinating, and I'm sensing this here as well, you're finding the same issues impacting most of us in Southeast Asia. There is a perceived talent shortage, or is there? And it's a rhetorical question, yeah? So is there a perceived talent shortage, or is it that the jobs are moving at a pace that is more rapid than the ability of the talent to provide for that type of complexity of roles? I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud. And therefore, it looks like I have all these jobs, but I don't have people to support this. I don't think that is the case. I mean, we sense it in Malaysia as well, and we talk a lot about it, and I'll be referring to Shahryn Azmi shortly. I think it's a little bit more around the perception. It's more of a perception issue, if you ask me. Can I also then, maybe Shahryn mentioned this around the area of income and the area of jobs. So my perception is we are now moving away from a security of job to a security of income, which therefore means in the earlier days, do I have the job security that will keep me going day on day, month on month, year on year? Today, I'm actually looking at, I have a lifestyle that I have to manage, and I need a minimum of so many ringgit or USD in order for me to manage that lifestyle. So whether I run one job or I run a multiple of jobs, as long as I'm able to get income security, we should be okay. Shahryn, your thoughts around that, my friend?
Yeah, I mean, let me dial back to your previous comment. I don't want to be the eternal optimist. I actually believe that there is, as I mentioned just now, I think there is a lot of opportunity, income opportunity.
Yep.
There are a lot of people seeking those opportunities. The key really is that they somehow are not connecting. If you can actually bring them together, you'll actually find there are a lot of people out there, and they are not necessarily unemployed currently, but they are people who could be persuaded. This is the important transition part. Could be persuaded to monetize their free time, to look at this and say, look, we don't need you to do, to leave your current job, but we need you to complete a task, a project, and could you do this? And right now, I would agree that some people are a little bit hesitant, but so long as it doesn't endanger their current pay and they actually make more, they're actually coming. We're actually seeing this as MakeTimePay. We're actually seeing people rushing in to say, hey, look, show me that I can do this, and I want to do this. And it's actually satisfying the companies. So they do exist, and the shortage is because of the inability to locate them. It's not that they do not exist as people, except that you need to find them. And then so what companies do is they engage, staffing companies, recruitment companies, headhunters to find these people because it's such a drama.
Yes.
But if you can actually connect with these people through technology, and the technology exists, and allow them to say to, whoever it is, to Gojek, Sinan Mas, and whenever you put their hand up and say, look, I'm here. You couldn't find me before, but now you can find me.
Yes.
You actually start to see this as a much more free-flowing situation. So that was I think that is something that I feel quite strongly is the case. The technology allows us to do this. As far as income is concerned, it is, again, an issue of the ability, we call it fractional employment, and we do push it. We say to people, look, you could work for 5 companies in one day or 5 companies in a week or whatever it is. But the key is that you must connect with the opportunities. So you can pick and choose the opportunities as they come up. The organizations are starting to see that, look, I don't need to hire people. And it sounds a bit rude, but you hire somebody and there's a lot of their working time is not productive. They actually, don't do what you think they're doing. But if you take somebody and you break down their what you need from them into tasks, and say, look, I just need you to do all of this. By the time they finish all of that, you'll probably find that they can go home quite early, or they don't need to work as long. But then you go to the other side, which is, well, if I've broken you down into tasks and I actually subcontract or I commission those tasks outwards to gig workers, I actually could get it faster, possibly better, easier. And in that regard, and from the receiving side, the worker says, okay, I can do this. And they start to make a name for themselves. But Alex just now said, you don't want to be offering a common service that is easily replaceable. You're absolutely right. But here's the other one, is also availability. So other people can do it, but they're not as available. Yeah, so that is one of those things. I say, look, here's these 10 people, but guess what? They can't do it by the time that you need it. So you got me, and maybe I cost 5% more, but it's okay. It works out for everybody.
Nice one.
I think my key here really is technology right now. It can be an enemy. It can be a horror. But if in a situation where it's trying to put people in touch with jobs and income and employers in touch with people, it's wonderful. It's tremendous that allows the people to do that. And I think we really should encourage that. I think it's just the way forward.
Nice one. Thank you, Shahryn. I would like to open this up to the floor. Are there any questions that our audience has? Once again, I think to Lely's point, I minta maaf, this is in English. We can have the questions in Bahasa Indonesia, no problem. Any questions from anyone? Yes, there's one. This is to Pak Herman from Jose. Based on the information from the presenters and learning from experience in the current layoffs at the big startups, unicorn, decacorns, do you think people should not expect long-term jobs anymore due to the fast and dynamic job changes? So that's the first question, Pak Herman. The second question is, what is the effect then for the career and talent development? Wouldn't that be obsolete? That's quite impactful. Pak Herman, your thoughts, sir?
Yeah, so let's this is the thing that I also give some the information during today seminar, right? So the layoff on the happening lately in Indonesia is not because of we are thinking to reduce number of people, because just like reducing the number of the people itself, right? But the reason why we're reducing the number of people, because it has been quite some times that the investor invest in the startup unicorn or decacorn in the Indonesia this day, and also they try to thinking to get the profit, back to the investor again, right? Because it's already quite sometimes. now we understand that the previous one we try to grow the business itself. So that's the reason why we need people, we need resource to build the company become more bigger, and also to jump in so to create the market share, especially in the country that we want to get in, right? So that's that we have a lot of people. But now again, like a tech company, tech is a tech, right? But sometimes it's just like because of tech we can cross country, we can do the effectiveness way how to do the business. So the reason why we reduce the number of people is just like we need to get the profit right now. It cannot be delayed anymore, because if we delay again for this day, then we cannot hit the profit as what we targeted before, right? That's the first one. The second one, if you think that the Indonesia company that not to thinking about long-term job, honestly speaking, in the startup this day, we have not think about it. We still need to have like the FTE or the permanent employee working in our company. We have not think to switch from the permanent into the contract basis, unless for project basis, yes, we are thinking about to hire people based on the contract, but to create a sustainability in the company itself, because tech is actually quite a lot of the what call it the secrecy or something that we cannot share with the others, right? So that's the reason why we want to create the permanent until today, right? So hope it can answer the first one. Now we are talking about the second one, right? What is the effect then for career or talent development? So again, if you are thinking about the age of the startup company, especially in Indonesia, it's very short, right? We are probably not. I can say that the 2 from 10 company already thinking or implement about the career and talent development. The reason why is very hard because again, the talent war in startup is very crazy, right? The talent itself compared the growth of the what call it the startup company in Indonesia is crazy. Now we are almost like what? Almost like 2,000 something of the startup company that we call as the unicorn or something like the have the sustainability to grow, right? We can expect this startup can grow. The number to growing for the last 3 years, it become 2,000. You think that from the last 3 years we can grow talent as much as the startup needed? No, we cannot. So I don't think quite a lot of the company now thinking about the career or talent development. We are starting to thinking, but probably the pace and also the situation in the startup itself, probably we cannot create sustainable career or talent development for most of the function. That's my thought. This is my observation to the quite a lot of my colleagues in the startup company.
And I think it's also because of the scale that you're talking about. I would love to hear, Pa Alex, what are your thoughts around the security of tenure, long-term jobs, and this area around talent development? Bearing in mind, you also talked about the e-learning wallet. How do you see this?
Yeah, as competition's getting tougher and tougher, every company will look after the most cost-effective ways to achieve the target with the optimum ways on managing resources, right? So on the learning perspective, for instance, we used to use the traditional approach on learning. We do a training need analysis, we develop a curriculum, we scheduling a training and so forth. It's quite long for people to have access for learning. Actually, each individual should know what they need to learn in order to make their job better, faster, more cheaper, and more flexible than before, right? So we should empower people to develop themselves. For the permanent employee, they have luxurious status as an employee. They got access to employee to company budgets. But as a gig employer, as a gig worker, we really need to think about our development and think about the future skills that needed and competitions and the distinguish between you and others, and also the visibilities, how to like Shahryn says, that how to make you visible to the market and can be accessed easily from the employee point of view. So I think in the next 10 years, I was shocked by the slide that Shahryn shows us. Yeah, probably we'll be no longer talking about the permanent or contract based employees. Every companies will looking for the more flexible one, the more cost effective one, which lead to the contract based, right? So I agree with that. I buy that. But for the public sectors, for the public services, to some extent, political decisions should also consider security for the employee.
Sure.
So,
no, you're absolutely spot on. Allow me to respond, and these are my thoughts to this question. What is interesting is if you look at the themes of employment tenure over the last decade or so, in the early days, you would be talking about maybe 15 to 20 years in a particular outfit. But now it's moved down. It's moved down to 7, it's moved down to 5. Today, you are lucky if you are there for 9 months. And you are lucky. And why do I say that? Just have a look at the LinkedIn. Don't go too far. Go to any of the LinkedIn profile. And I'm not saying anything good or bad. I'm just making an observation. Go to the LinkedIn profile and you see 2 months here, 4 months there, 9 months here. And you're then thinking to yourself, hang on, what is this person actually learning? Now, for me, thinking about it on the other side at a wider, forget about the pay, because we are talking about rewards as well. Put aside the rewards. Let's just look at the value contribution. And if you are going to be in a company for 9 to 12 months at a time, maybe less, it becomes a little bit difficult for you to then say, I am contributing so much, which therefore means we now need to take a step back and say, what do I now need to do to beef up my skill base in order for me to equally contribute in this regard? So the concepts have now changed. And I've got a very good question from a very good friend, Evelyn, who I had the absolute delight of meeting about a week or so back here in KL. She has asked the question, how can we prepare our children to face the future in the gig economy world? Shahryn, I would like to address this to you.
My favorite subject, because I have 3 children.
Yes.
I mean, in 2005, the United States Bureau of Labor Statistics did a study, and it said that they found that the average American changes career 7 times in their working life. This is 2005.
Wow.
And so I was presenting, and the Prime Minister of Malaysia at the time said, stop quoting American statistics. What is the Malaysian number? I said, I don't know, sir. He said, find out. So in 2008, we did the same study, and we found that in 2008, this is 14 years ago, in 2008, the average Malaysian changed career 2.98 times in their working life. The reason that's important is because 14 years later, after COVID and everything else, I don't know what the new number is, but I bet you the number has gone up. 3 point something. Now, the discussion that we were having at that time was very interesting. This was 2008. The discussion we were having, and this is answering Evelyn's question. The question was, what should our children study for the future? And the answer is, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what they study, because whatever they study will soon be irrelevant. If we say, oh, learn coding, I mean, for all those of you who are, not well, most of you are much younger than me. So I started learning coding. I mean, goes back to something called COBOL. You'll all say, like, what the hell is COBOL? I mean, it goes back that far, right? And then it goes back, and all this is just a way of thinking. So when you want to learn something, it really doesn't matter. It's Einstein said this. I'll give you what Einstein said. Einstein said, education is what remains after you have forgotten everything you learned in the classroom. So what you want to do basically is give your children a good education so that they know many things. They have the ability to learn. They have the ability to change gears. They are constantly switched on and they're constantly accepting change, because that is the thing that is going to allow them to survive. It is not a comment that I say very easily, because a lot of people will hold on and try to keep things the way they have always known it. Yeah. But the only thing that we know is it's going to keep changing. So you want your children to be taught to accept change and to just keep learning and to have independent learning. It's not as easy as it sounds, but that is what they should learn. What they should learn doesn't matter.
Well played. Well played. All right. We have another question here. And interestingly enough, this is from Nurleli. Nurleli, what is your question, ma'am? You're on mute.
Oh, thank you, Taranjit. Actually, we have another participant that have question here. Maybe I can let this question to be heard first.
Sure. Okay. Now, this is back to Shahryn. And this is the thank you for sharing the future of work slide. Could you please elaborate more detail as to the statement, wider skill gaps emerge as skilling is now totally personal? What does that mean? Does it also have a similar meaning that every one of us should have multiple competencies where we can say experts or generalists? Thank you.
Yeah. Basically, thank you, Pak Agus. The issue is this. The reality is people in the whole workforce will not develop their skills at the same rate. Some people will be developing faster, some will be slower, through not anybody's fault, but through opportunity, through exposure, through resources, whatever it is. And as a result, because you are going to be left to do your own development, those people who do not have the access, do not have the opportunity, do not have the resource will start to fall behind. And unless, you're going to have all governments making sure that everybody, is slightly socialistic, make sure that everybody has at least this level, but that level keeps changing. The reality is that you're going to end up with wider and wider gaps. And that's going to be very difficult. You already see the gaps right now, but companies have some role in increasing individuals' learning and skilling, and that's really where the problem is. So I think long term, I'm talking about 100% on contract, 100% responsibility for your own learning. You're going to see those big gaps in the market, the whole workforce.
Now, we have just hit the 9:30 mark from KL, 8:30 with Indonesia. If you could just have another couple of minutes, there's a question that is coming in from Dr. Abdul Halim. Dr. Abdul Halim, would you want to address your question to the panel?
Sure. Yeah, I think, Assalamualaikum. First of all, thank you to the panels. You guys have done a good job in explaining about the gig and etc. Well, the thing is that let's straight to the point. Basically, gig is going, jobs will not be permanent for someone. So there'll be, sometimes people will get laid off and things like that, right? So, for instance, if someone who has a permanent job and would like to, manage and do gig, right? And how do the person effectively do that? So that, because it does not really contradict with the contract that they have within their permanent job and the gig, other opportunities. Second question would be that, how do you market yourself to engage with big gig opportunities? In a sense, we probably have certain skill sets that we can, we can explore, so that because there's a lot of opportunity gigs out there, right? So I think maybe Brother Shahryn can, share or something like that. So That's all. Thank you.
Sure. So 2 questions. One is, how do you prepare for a gig work? Pretty straightforward if you ask me, but I will not answer the question since the response has come directly to Shahryn. And the other question is, how do you market yourself? Shahryn, over to you, sir.
Yeah, I mean, the issue of, let me give you a very slight story, just very briefly. We started MakeTimePay one day. I was having lunch with a couple of friends there, with my co-founders, and this we ordered food from a food delivery service, and the food delivery man was a very, I'll say a very old man. You know, it's definitely even older than me, totally white haired and everything. And I went out and I got the food, and I called him Uncle. I said, Uncle, why are you delivering food? And he said, because my 2 children have lost their jobs, and I'm helping put some money on the table, and they are spending every day looking for work. So I said, but you know, you've got a really nice car. And he said, yeah, I was an accountant for 40 years, but I'm very old now, and nobody will give me an opportunity because they say I'm too old. Yeah, so this is ageism. If you don't know ageism, ageism is like racism except with age. Yeah. So this is something where I looked at this and I said, well, that's not right. That man is a fully qualified accountant with a lot of experience for 40 years. He must be able to earn more per hour than the, you know, one ringgit, 2 ringgit delivery charges. It's crazy. It's crazy. So the situation here, Dr. Abdul Halim, is really the issue of being able to see that people are prepared to do many things, not just what they're professionally qualified to do, they're prepared to do other things. But it's no value to do something where your hour pay is so low. So what you want to do is connect with something that suits your professional capability and pays you fairly, okay? So this is the thing. So you need to be able to connect with that. This is the reason we actually set up our business, which is actually to connect people to opportunity that suits their professional capability. That's one. But then it's not always possible because I need the money today. I need the money I'll do anything, yeah? Yep. So then you look at what people are prepared to do, not just by their vertical, which is their professional capability, but by their horizontal, which is what interests you. Actually, I'm very interested in photography. I'll come and take pictures at your wedding. I'm very interested in restaurants. I'll come and prep food. I'll chop vegetables. You know, people are prepared to do anything. It's both survival and putting money on the table. And you'd be very surprised. There are our law firm that we use. They tell us that their partners all use unemployed lawyers. I didn't know they were unemployed lawyers, but apparently they're unemployed lawyers to do legal research. And they said, we cannot hire them, and we are giving these people work to do that. But how do those lawyers connect? And after a while, oh, they're friends. But after a while, you run out of friends. So you have to have the mechanism through technology to connect with all of these unemployed lawyers so you can do the legal research. So the technology, this is really why the technology exists, to be able to connect people with the opportunities. And you will see a lot of things happening to be able to make people be okay. People are really struggling. People are really having a hard time paying their bills. I mean, I'm talking about crazy lifestyle. We're just talking about trying to live a normal life with their children and everything else. So this is something that they need to be able to do. Raising your skills, you need to be able to just having your visibility and everything else. You just need to be there, see what the opportunities are. And after you stick your toe in the water a little bit, I think the reality is you will say, oh, actually, this is how I can present myself, I can market myself. This is what people want. And then it starts to go. If you've not done it before, that first moment is a scary moment, but that is the biggest moment. And then after that, I will say that it's actually quite easy.
Well done. So I would actually add on one thing to that, what Shahryn has mentioned. And one of them would be a reframing of your mental model. And I think that's absolutely critical. If I come to the table thinking that I'm only good to do this one thing because that's what I've been trained for, chances are you're limiting the scope that you're having for other things that you may be equally as good, if not better, if that opportunity arises. So it's a mental model reframing. I'm really cognizant of time. We are 7 minutes past. Nurleli, your thoughts, if any questions from you, ma'am?
Oh, thank you. First of all, congratulations to all of the speakers. You guys really did a very great job in explaining to us what is gig economy is about. And I know we access our time for a couple of minutes, but if Taranjit allow me, I have some questions.
Sure.
I think I have two questions. This is for Shahryn especially. It's very interesting explanation, sir, that you give, especially, it's really, about the Da Vinci machine. I heard about this quite some years ago, but I never thought that the impact in other area is this big, So my question would be, first, is there any differences of gig model opportunity on different working or business sector or role? Because I see in the operating theater, they're already gig, that there's. So I'm just wondering, so if yes, what worker need to do to fit in this phenomenon and at the highest and get the highest benefit of it? I know Taranjit just mentioned before that we have to have like a mindset model that we are ready for everything, but what we need to ready for to get the best benefit of it. So that's my first question. The second question is that, your experience in managing the MakeTimePay, what usually the talent profile that the gig work provider looking for the most? The classic leadership, innovation, value contributing, or longer stayer still applicable, or is completely different profile that they are looking for? So I really appreciate if I can get some explanation on that. Thank you.
I'll do, in the interest of time, I'll answer the first one very quickly, which is that any profession can be gigged. Any profession. Yeah. Right now, if you look at near my house, there's a hospital. We are actually in discussion with them. But each doctor is actually an independent businessman. Every doctor there, because that doctor has clinic hours, that doctor has nurses, and that doctor gets money and then pays some of that money to the hospital. So technically, that doctor is already an independent entrepreneur there. So if you look at that, then it's already a kind of a gig, because there's no certainty that the doctor will stay, there's no contracts and so on. So really, absolutely every job can be broken into a contract, which is where it is going. This is the thing. I talked to a lot of private companies, government companies, and they're all talking about putting all their stuff onto contracts. I don't think it's a Malaysian thing. I think it is the way of the world moving forward. The second question is, when you are looking at skills, don't laugh, but actually the number one thing that everybody asks for is actually dependability or reliability. You said you were going to give me on Friday at 9 o'clock, and it didn't come in at 9 o'clock. That is the biggest drama. Okay, you want this whether you're a full-time worker or whatever. You said you do. And that is so important for every company, which is to be able to trust. Yeah, not that you will steal money, but trust. You said you do, you did it. And then you move to quality. Yeah, you don't look at quality first, because 90% late on time is much better than 200% late. So they want to be able to do this. So that reliability, that trust factor is very hard. We do it like online shopping. We give everybody a star rating. So the employer, after the gig, the employer rates the worker using stars, and the worker rates the company by stars, so that people look and they say, oh, this is a good worker. 300 companies rated them 5 stars. Oh, this is a terrible company. You don't want to go there. 20 workers rated them 1 star. So you see this, and it keeps everybody honest and moving. It's like a TripAdvisor, except for a gig, So that is the thing. And you see it's the same. People want the same thing, except their payment basis, their employment basis is different.
Good. Last question here is for Pa Alex. And I would like to hear your thoughts very, very quickly about the protection of the rights of the gig worker from a governmental perspective. In Malaysia, and I'll do a comparison when, and I think Shahryn raised this, when we think of gig, we talk about motorbike, ride share, we talk about food panda. That's the perception that they have of gig. And therefore, anything related to the rights immediately is perceived in that cluster of employees, which is actually not the case, because as rightly pointed out, anyone can be a gig worker. Now, what is the deal like in Indonesia, sir? How do we effectively protect the rights of our gig workers? Very quickly.
Yeah, like I said before, currently we have a job creation law.
Yeah.
And job creation law talking about the freelancer and part-time employees, and they give the circumstances on that. So the scope of work, the pay and the term and condition that are protected by law. So also the social security and the healthcare society provided by the government. So I think moving forward, the government will look after this more carefully and will provide the better regulation to that.
Very nice, very nice. Pa Herman, any last thoughts from you before we wrap up for the day that you would like to share?
No.
Very nice. I like the candidness that you bring to the table. Good. All right. On that note, I think we've actually passed almost 13 minutes into the hour. We're currently at 9:43 KL time, 8:43. Thank you so much, Ibu Nurleli. Thank you so much for hosting the session. I would like to thank the panel speakers for their time, their effort, for the contributions that they've made. I would also like to thank all of our attendees and the contributions on the questions that they've asked. I really enjoyed myself personally. Ibu Nurleli, back over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Taranjit, and thank you, everybody. Okay, Mitra QR, we come to the end of the our discussion tonight. We cannot be more appreciative for all our speakers, which did a very, very good job, and moderator, as well as all the Mitra QR participating tonight. Big thank you to you all. But we humbly hope for Mitra QR to kindly give us feedback for better QR talk in the future by filling in the feedback form available on the chat room. So, you know, we have a nice token of appreciation ready to send to you if you provide complete address and data on the form. So you still have questions to our speakers, you can also write it down in the feedback form and we will try to get the answer and send it back to you. Don't miss our next QR Talk Global Webinar Series session number 5, which inshallah will be held on the 22nd of February 2023 with the theme of Project Management Borderless Work Nature. I believe this is a very interesting discussion that we will have also. We will have another great expert on this area. So if you can find information about quality resources coaching, quantum step advisory, and also coaching certification program, Institute of Disruptive Leadership on QR website, and also in campus website and email and WhatsApp number that there in the slide. Lastly, I hope we all get a huge advantage from tonight's discussion, that I do. So be it a new knowledge, inspiration, and ideas to embrace change and be future ready. So thank you again and good night.
Good night. Thank you.
Thank you, Taranjit. Thank you, Pak Herman.
Good night. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Pak Alex.
Good night.
Thank you, Shahryn. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much for
Thank
the
you,
time.
Herman. Thank you, Taranjit. Thank you all.
Bye.
Thank you, Shahryn. Very interesting. I really like it. Need to talk more about that. Real. Yes, real. Thank you so much, Taranjit.
Well
Thank you
done.
so much. So
Well done.
how was the dinner?
Too fast. I had to drop it and come across, but no problem. I've enjoyed the
So
session.
much. I really appreciate this.
No,
I'm
no.
sorry to give you trouble.
No worries. Anyway, all good. I've got to go down, catch up with the family.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Shahryn, thank you.
Thank you.
Shahryn, thank you. We'll keep on contact. So we will discuss some more, Taranjit.
Thank you. Thank you. Take care.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you all. Thank you, everybody. Good night. Okay, guys. It's all good.